So how do we fix this, Professor Garrett? Like, what are the tools that we could leverage in the marketplace? What are tools that could be leveraged from a policy perspective? Like, what are you seeing there?
Yeah, there's a few solutions and a few kind of problems, right? So on one level, we're talking about the fraud. How do you stop the fraud? And this other question of how do we fix the educational system more broadly? The fraud, we simply need better oversight. We need right now, students can register for classes through one system that gets them into the California system, and then they can go create fake accounts at every college. There's this open gate to let them in, but not much of a follow-up. So there needs to be a stronger follow-up at the college level, each college, or even better at the state level where they're admitting them.
Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show. Well, hey there, folks. Brian Nichols here on another fun-filled episode, yes, of the Brian Nichols Show. I am, as always, your humble host, joining you from our lovely Cardio Miracles studios here in sunny Eastern Indiana. The Brian Nichols Show is powered by, yes, the best heart health supplement in the world, Cardio Miracles. So if you want to learn more about that, stick around. We're going to talk about that later in today's episode. But first, why is the California community college system full of fraud, waste, and abuse? Did you know that it was full of fraud, waste, and abuse? Well, it's out in California, so I'm sure you had an inkling, but let's actually pull back some layers of the onion here and talk about what's taking place in the land of higher education. And joining me here to do that is actually joining us from California, Professor Matthew Garrett. Professor Garrett, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Oh, great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Looking forward to today's conversation. I wish it was on better terms. I wish we were talking about some breakthrough discovery in the world of science or math. I mean, I wasn't good at math, just truth be told. But hey, you know what? I went to college. I got the degree. That's what matters, right? Or at least that's what I was told. But another story for a different day. Professor Garrett, I want to, before we dig into what has been unfolding behind the scenes over at the California community colleges, to first get a better understanding of who you are and I guess what your vested interest is in this conversation. So with that being said, the floor is yours.
Well, my name is Matthew Garrett. I was a professor of history at Bakersfield College for the past 14 years, and I've recently moved over to campus reform, where I'm working as a higher ed fellow and now as an associate editor. So I've been involved in the California's educational system for a while and monitoring it and participating in it. I've seen firsthand some of the problems that we have with it. And this particular issue of really misplaced $13 million is a startling one.
Yeah, I wish I had $13 million to misplace, Professor Garrett. That'd be nice, right? But apparently when you're a large enough institution, $13 million can just poof and disappear. So do us a favor. Let's unpack here what's actually taking place over in the California community schools. I mean, $13 million, that is, despite my jokes, a hefty lump of change. So talk to us. What's been going on over there?
Well, they've got a very large budget to begin with. The statewide budget is controlled out of Sacramento. That's different than a lot of other states where you have much more local influence. In California, back in the 70s, they started shifting the funding control up to Sacramento. And with that came sort of an abdication of responsibility. People aren't really paying much attention to it. The money just flows. And the way the state set up its funding model, the student-centered funding model, it's based on headcount largely. And so as long as they get students enrolled, it doesn't matter if they're even real students, or it doesn't matter if they're passing, doesn't matter if they're learning. As long as you have seats, heads in the classroom, seats in the chairs, then you are going to get paid. And that triggers a payout for your college district, for your local union, for your teachers. Everyone wins except the taxpayer. And so in this sort of system, there's just an absolute lack of accountability. No one seems to care or be too concerned. And when students don't really exist, or when real students take the money and go to Vegas, there's really no follow-up to see if they're using those funds for educational purposes or if they're necessary. And of course, in California, education is largely subsidized to the extreme where most students are not paying anything for their California community college. It's completely subsidized.
Well, amongst other things, wasn't it your governor out there, Governor Newsom, was saying that you guys were going to help foot the bill for illegal aliens over there too in healthcare?
Oh, yeah. And it doesn't stop, but that's just the broader budget, right? And of course, that's caused economic strain. The budget's falling apart in California, which is going to have impact on California's community colleges and high schools, K-12. They're all now having to scale back their budgets because Newsom went a little too far on that, I think. And so expenditures are a bit of a problem. And then you also want to look at the way other ways monies are being spent in California community colleges. The state budget has and just outrageous amounts of money set aside. For example, I think there's $10 million for LGBTQ advocacy in the college system, which like it or don't like it, I don't understand why we're spending millions of dollars to advocate for LGBTQ centers on campuses, or for illegal immigration is another one. There's millions of dollars set aside for that. There's millions of dollars for inmate education. So there's a lot of real social programs. Oh, and low income or homeless shelters. We're building homeless shelters on campuses now. So there's really a mission creep happening at the community college level that's causing a lot of money to go out in lots of different directions. And with a $21 billion budget, there's a lot of wiggle room there for all sorts of creative agendas.
Mission creep. I'm waiting for the colleges to start building the high-speed rail that was promised a couple of decades ago, but maybe that's a different conversation for a different day. So I guess let's talk about how we got here. Right now, now this is my very third party, call me fourth party, I guess at this point. I'm over in Indiana, so I'm quite a hop, skip, and a jump from California. But how did we get here? This sounds more like we're just trying to. I don't want to say fudge the books, but that's the vibe it comes across as, hey, got this slush fund. Nobody's really checking. Fill it up and give it to the folks who, are politically expedient to help support us in the future. At least that's what it feels like. Am I off base?
No, that's what's going on. We've got, it really comes down to that funding model that's just based on however many you get. And so there's always these efforts to find creative ways to manufacture new students. I mentioned the inmate education program is one of them. If you can enroll those students, that's more students for more money for your school. Another is dual enrollment, which is really just stealing from the future, because those are students who are in high school, but next year might be in college. Well, we'll just enroll them now. In fact, our current chancellor of the California Community College System, Sonia Christian, has rolled out an aggressive plan, her Vision 2030, where she wants every junior high school, every 8th grade student to be enrolled in college to begin in 9th grade, because that's more headcount and that's more money for the system. So it's really about finding anywhere you can to just enroll anyone, ill-prepared or not, students who are definitionally unqualified really for college. There are some rare 9th graders who could succeed, but for the most part, that's not the purpose of a college education, but that's increasingly the role it's playing because they're in pursuit of that head count. And along with that, you'll get a lot of just made up fake students, which is how we got into this current mess of all these fake students who've been enrolling online, especially during the pandemic when online education was the buzz. People just started flocking into the classrooms with fake identifications. And California is so eager to be accessible and equitable and have more students. You mentioned something earlier about how you have the certificate of a degree, right? Well, that's unfortunately how a lot of educators look at it. They're not really looking to create skills or improve the student's ability. It's about getting that credential to the students. So administrators are really pushing to just get degrees out. It doesn't matter whether they measure anything, if they actually teach skills. We just want to get as many students in and pump them out to meet a predicted shortfall of degrees in California. And as a result, we're seeing watered down, less rigorous degrees that mean less and less, or even fake students.
See, I did a talk back, 2022, somewhere in there. And I was at this big conference and they were asking sales development leaders, which for folks playing along in the home game, that's the world I've spent well over a decade in the business space. B2B sales is helping teach outbound sales coaching and teams and such. So one of the things I said during this, call it a TED Talk, is kind of like that vibe, but there's a panel of folks on the stage and they were like, well, Brian, how do you qualify folks when you're going to an applicant pool? Like, what are you looking for? And I started, telling about what past experiences they had. I want to ask them certain questions on the interview. And one of the ladies that was up next to me, she goes, well, wait, you don't ask them about their college education? And I was like, no. She's like, well, why not? They spent 4 years, if not more in some cases, earning that degree. Why wouldn't you ask them about it? And I said, well, frankly, because it doesn't tell me anything. To your point, right? Back when I was in school, getting a degree actually meant something. It showed some competency or some mastery of a certain skill or a theory or something in general that shows me you can use your critical thinking skills. You have the gray matter up top to actually solve problems. But nowadays, it doesn't tell me diddly poo. I mean, it's a piece of paper that you could have gotten if you did, the most intense, like, macroeconomic course out there, going to game theory and talking about, what's that one with it's trigonometry. No, it doesn't matter, because I didn't do it, because I sucked at it, right? Because math's not my strong suit. But I was really good at poli-sci, which I'm using that degree really, really well. But I digress. But with that being said, like, on the flip side, I mean, if I'm getting somebody who got a degree in, like, lesbian basket weaving, I mean, what does that mean to me? That doesn't tell me anything. So I stopped caring about that. And mind you, I didn't use all these examples on stage, but I told the lady, I was like, listen, I get it. If you want me to use a college degree as kind of a threshold to say, yes, I think you should be considered because you have these skills, then I think it's on those folks in college to actually, I don't know, show that the degree has value. And it sounds like the quality of the degree, especially in these bigger blue states like California. I hail from New York originally. Like, I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand. I know that a lot of these degrees are just degree mills to, just pass out pieces of paper. So how do we fix this, Professor Garrett? Like, what are the tools that we could leverage in the marketplace? What are tools that could be leveraged from a policy perspective? Like, what are you seeing there? You're trying to stay sharp, whether it's for work, learning, or just not forgetting where you left your keys. Been there. But lately, the mental fog hits hard. And brain fog isn't just stress. It's often tied to poor blood flow and low nitric oxide levels, because your brain needs oxygen just as much as your other muscles do. Because without it, you're slower to process, less focused, and more fatigued. And that's one of the many reasons why I trust Cardio Miracle. Not only does it boost nitric oxide for heart and circulation, it supports cognitive clarity, focus, and even mood regulation thanks to its unique blend of L-arginine, CoQ10, vitamin D3, and antioxidant-rich superfoods. So if you're tired of feeling mentally cloudy, give your brain what it's craving. Click the link in the show notes, scan that little QR code over my shoulder, or head to cardiomiracle.com/TBNS, which will give you 15% off your order. Just look for the little note on the website saying you're shopping with Brian Nichols. One more time, that's cardiomiracle.com/TBNS. And now, let's get back to the show.
Yeah, there's a few solutions and a few kind of problems, right? So on one level, we're talking about the fraud. How do you stop the fraud? And this other question of how do we fix the educational system more broadly? The fraud, we simply need better oversight. We need, right now, students can register for classes through one system that gets them into the California system, and then they can go create fake accounts at every college. There's this open gate to let them in, but not much of a follow-up. So there needs to be a stronger follow-up at the college level, each college, or even better at the state level where they're admitting them. So we need a much more verifying actual identifications. But getting to this bigger issue, that's the more important issue, I think, of how do we make college valuable again? Because it's fading, it's losing its value as a credentialing institution. And that comes back to some of these same pressures. There's a pressure for grade inflation to get people out because we have to get them a degree. Well, we need to instead focus on rigor. That this idea of DEI, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion. Well, you look at those terms, inclusion and equity, ensuring equal results. This sort of obsession is driving down the quality of education. I mean, just recently we had Harvard. Harvard had its remedial math class it was offering. Why is Harvard doing that? Well, because they're obsessed with admitting students who are not really prepared for Harvard. Now, community colleges, they're not holding the same standard as Harvard, but they can still hold a standard. The fact that you have $13 million in fraud is occurring in large part because fake students are creating identities and they're getting all the way through the class and collecting those financial aid distributions. Well, how are they getting through a class? Shouldn't a professor have noticed that they're not doing anything, or they're just,
you think?
So there's a rigor issue that needs to be addressed at the college levels also. In every classroom, we need faculty to be supported in holding rigor, because if you're not supported, if you're the one faculty who says, we're going to make you actually write, we're going to make you actually read, then students are going to despise you. You're going to get complaints. And if the administration won't back you, then that's the end of you. So there needs to be institutional support for rigor. And instead of having DEI month, we need to have merit month. We need to have excellence month. We need to have an emphasis on genuine skill building, not on inclusivity at all costs.
I'm not sure. I think you might be a little bit older than me, Professor Garrett, and that's okay. Because back when I was a kid, I actually was a kid back in the day. 2004, I was big. I was a big kid though. I was like 6 foot and I was in like 6th grade. But I remember that there's a movie from Pixar called The Incredibles, and the bad guy in The Incredibles, his name is Syndrome. And in the show, he starts out, he's a little boy. He's a big fan of Mr. Incredible. He wants to be Mr. Incredible's sidekick. Mr. Incredible says, "No, buddy, I work alone." Buddy gets all heartbroken. And that's the villain origin story. Turns into the bad guy. And by the way, this is a spoiler alert for folks, movie's been out for like 20 years. Go rent it. Go to Disney Plus. Go watch it there. But long story short, what happens is Syndrome ends up, he creates all these weapons. He creates all these, pieces of technology that gives everybody superhero powers. And in the show, he has this very famous line where he's laughing. He goes, "Ha ha ha, well, when everybody's super, no one will be." And that feels like what we've seen happen in the education system, where we've had this embrace where we have to make everybody a superhero. But guess what? When you start making everybody a superhero and you look around, nobody's a superhero. So this is what's happening with degrees, is that these degrees aren't real. I mean, yes, they're functionally real, but they're not showing anything of value or substance behind the actual piece of paper. So all of a sudden, you have a situation where people are just going to get this piece of paper versus actually, to your point, embracing things that make them better as individuals, but holistically will make us as a society better, which I know there's a lot of folks in my audience who are going to be like, well, we got to focus on the individual. That's true, but you got to focus on the individual, because you being a better human being yourself by default will make you a better human being as a part of your community. And that has been lost. But also, take it even more down in a micro level. The better you are as a human being, the better you will be in your community, in your family, in your immediate, like your relationships, like all these little things that we should be doing to make ourselves better. It's like we've been hitting the easy button, which there's a role for an easy button, Professor Garrett, but when it's your education and the whole point is to challenge yourself, to get outside of your comfort zones, to go beyond the limits to get better, if you're just bypassing that in the pursuit of the piece of paper, we're just neglecting the whole intent of education. And this is a societal issue I think we're seeing across the board. Folks using ChatGPT just to do basic functions in their job versus being competent enough to actually do said job, right? So I'll get off my high horse here, but when you're looking at this issue, I do see, to your point of the DEI mentality, it is correlating into other facets of life. And I would say not for the best. Running a small business means adapting on the fly, hiring, scaling down, shifting teams based on seasonal projects. But most phone systems, they lock you into a set number of users and then make it a pain to adjust. And on the contrary, that's where Level 365 shines. Add or remove users anytime. Month-to-month plans, scale up when you need it, scale down when you don't. It's flexibility that actually matches how your business works. No headaches, no overpaying for empty seats. Just phones that move with you, and that is what makes Level 365 different.
Yeah, I think you're really hitting on something with this larger philosophical shift that we've seen, that the academy has moved away from teaching a standard and rigor, and we need to reach that. And you go to school to learn how to crunch those numbers or to study that discipline to be so good at it that you can excel. And instead, the academy has turned into a place where we affirm whatever you think you are, believe, or want, and tell you you're good enough just how you are. You don't need to change. We've lost discipline. And I don't mean discipline as in different fields of study, but in personal discipline. The academy's given that up in preference of inclusivity, that everything is good just how it is. And without a call to change and improve, we're really not going to see the growth we need in higher education.
Professor Garrett, I know we have a more concise time frame today. I was going to say condensed. I guess condensed works too. But with that being said, I do want to say, like, I've really enjoyed this conversation because this is something that we hear a lot about, but it's usually from folks outside of the institutions who are raising the alarm. There's so much more value when it's somebody who's a part of the institution saying, time out, things aren't working well. We had one gentleman on probably like three weeks ago. His name is it's like 3-4 months ago. Good grief, my time frame is just gone. Phil Magnus, and he was talking about how some colleges have been embracing like the fact that they're not diverse when it comes to philosophical perspectives or political perspectives. They're like, yeah, we're 98% leftists, and it's like that's a good thing. I thought you wanted diversity and inclusion. They're like, well, little asterisks there, right? With all that being said, like the fact that you're raising this up as a part of somebody in the system versus when, Phil Magnus is bringing this up as a part of somebody outside of the system, it does add a little bit more, credibility, a little bit more credence to the argument. So thank you for almost being a whistleblower in this case. But with that being said, let's do this. Let's go towards the end of the show here. Just point the audience in terms of if they want to have a call to action today. What are some tangible things that folks listening today could do? Let's say they live in California. They're hearing this issue raised up. What the California community colleges are being this bat crap insane? Like what should we do? What should they do? Professor Garrett, the floor is yours.
Well, you can always address your local school boards in their board meetings. I think another great move is to reach out to your local congressman. Congresswoman Young Kim has been leading a delegation of California Congressmen, Vince Fong and others are in it, to call for oversight, to call for an investigation. And that's federal investigation. So that's something I think would be valuable. So again, reaching out to those congressmen and encouraging them to move forward and continue with that call for accountability. And then checking in with your local trustees, because I think a lot of local trustees who run these school districts, they're at heart good folks who are just trying to serve the community, but they don't always understand how large these problems are, how serious they are. And so let them hear you, take their ear and give them a call or give them an email that says, look, these are concerns. We want to see them fixed. We don't want fake students taking up our tax dollars. We want to see real rigor. We don't want to see inclusivity over excellence. We want excellence over inclusivity.
I'll finish with this. I'm a Cowboys fan. I know it's my cross to bear. But I think back to 2016 when Dak Prescott was a rookie. And I think at the time when this event happened, the Cowboys were either 10 wins with 1 loss or 11 wins with 1 loss. Doesn't matter. But what happened was Dak Prescott, the only reason he was playing in 2016 was because there was a quarterback before him named Tony Romo. And Tony Romo got hurt in a preseason game against the Seattle Seahawks, right? He hurt his hip really bad. And it wasn't going to be until I think it was late November, early December when he even have a sniff's chance of getting back into the game. And the Cowboys at that point, like I said, 10, 11 wins, 1 loss, and they're all being led by this rookie quarterback. And there's a very, very profound speech that Tony Romo gave where he stood in front of the reporters and he said, listen, football is a meritocracy, right? You show up and you get what you earn. And Dak Prescott showed up and he got what he earned, and he's going to be the starter the rest of the year going forward. And which is a huge deal because Romo had been the quarterback for 10 years at that point, and he's just admitting that, yes, Dak has shown enough that he's going to take over. I say that because this mentality, meritocracy, earning something, right? And putting in the hard work to earn it. That's an idea. That's a value that we need to really get back to, not just in academia, but in life. And I think, across the board, a lot of the folks in the audience could agree with that. But let's go ahead, put a pin in today's conversation. Professor Matthew Garrett, I really, really appreciate this chat today. Any final thoughts for the audience as we wrap things up?
I really appreciate being here. Thank you for giving me a moment of your time. And as we look forward, I would love to see our educational system excel and have our students really learn valuable skills so they can continue to make America a wonderful country. So let's go ahead and emphasize that and invite our congressmen and our trustees to really prioritize excellence and merit and rigor in the educational system.
Hear, hear. All right, Professor Matthew Garrett on the Brian Nichols Show. Thank you for joining us. With that being said, folks, we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to The Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.